So let me give you a couple of exercises to get your bending happening. Bending is by far probably one of the most expressive devices that you have at your disposal when it comes to playing guitar, because slides and hammer-ons and pull-offs are also very expressive, of course, but bending is definitely one of those things that you can tell guitarists apart just by listening to the way they bend their strings, because there's really so many different little factors that come into play there that actually makes a bend sound the way it sounds. Okay, so without getting into that too much, let me just give you this word of caution. One thing that's very important with string bending is the tuning and the intonation. Okay, because a bend is never going to be 100% in tune, because you might also use vibrato, which is a rapid slight variation in pitch. Okay, so it's going to go in tune, out of tune, in tune, out of tune, like kind of fast like this. Okay, so what you can hear there, as I bend into the note, I apply a little bit of vibrato, which means decreasing and increasing the pitch a little bit, like quite fast, but it's just a little slight variation in the way I phrase that note. So it's never going to be 100% in tune. But why am I mentioning tuning now when I talk about bends? Well, it's really important that you try and get as close as you can. So a very good way to practice this is to play the note you're going to bend into, first of all, and then you actually bend into that note, and then you got to make sure that those two different instances of the same note actually sound the same. What I mean with that is exactly the following. I'll play the 12th fret, and then I'll bend up into the 12th fret from the 10th fret. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing there. First of all, I'm playing the note I'm going to bend into, otherwise I don't have a frame of reference. The more you practice this kind of stuff and the longer you play, you'll actually get used to the kind of tension in the strings that you'll feel on certain parts of the neck on different strings to get certain pitches to sound out. But until that happens, until that comes naturally for you, always reference the note you're bending into with a fretted note first of all. So let me do that for you as an exercise, descending down the neck. And I'm going to start on the B string on the 12th fret using whole step bends. So here we go, 12 on the B as a fretted note, 2 frets down, bend up into 12, and then I measure it again. I can do that a couple of times. Okay, once you're happy with that, you play 11, go down 2 frets, again measuring it, up. Once you're happy with that, you go to 10. One more time, 10, and then to 9. Okay, so that's the way you're going to go about it. Once again, don't look at this as a boring exercise. See it as something that's going to help you get your bends to really happen on the guitar, because that's one of the things where you'll develop your own distinctive and individual sound, is by the way you use articulation. And as I've spoken to you about bending just now, that's really one of the important ones to watch out for. So really make sure you nail these bends properly. Just as a point of interest, I read in an interview once, I can't remember who it was, I think it was a guitarist, was Eric Clapton perhaps, and they asked him, do you still practice? And then his response was, he doesn't really have time anymore to practice, or he's kind of doing some other things, or whatever the case is, but he still practices his bends. Okay, because obviously in blues, string bending is really it happens in that style a lot, and it's a very expressive device. So he still works on his bending today. So if this is a new technique to you, Set aside a certain amount of practice time in your schedule every day and make sure you nail these bends. Okay, so that exercise I've just shown you was for whole step bends, okay, or whole tone bends, whatever you want to call it. Let's look at how you would practice half step bends. Okay, so I'll play 12, bend into it, play 12 again, bend into it, play 11, bend into it from 10, okay, so you get the idea. That's how you would practice your half step bends. We've looked at whole step bends. Minor third bends, they're a little tricky. If you once you got those down, you can look at them. And in this case, let's start a little bit higher on the neck. I'm going to play 15 on the B string. Bend into 15 from 12. Bend into 14 from 11. And so forth. You get the idea. Play the note you're going to bend into first as a fretted note so that you can hear and internalize the sound and the pitch of that note. Then you actually bend into the note. Then you play that same note again as a fretted note just to kind of judge your accuracy in terms of the bend. Now, I can talk forever on different kinds of ways that you can bend, but I'm just going to mention this briefly so that you can remember it as you're practicing your bends as well. First of all, you want to go for accuracy, right? But later on, you might want to experiment with the nature of the bend. Still, you want to get to that accurate representation of the note you're bending into, but you might choose to do it using different feels or different vibe. For instance, let's say I'm playing the 12th fret on the B string, and then I'm going to have a really swift bend into that note, which would sound like this. So it's a really quick bend into that note. I could choose to do more of a lazy bend, like a... So you can see that's quite different to the more aggressive, quick bending into the note, kind of fast, like this. A bit more lazy. Okay, so experiment with this. Remember, this all forms part of articulation, and just think of the way you speak when you try and make certain, bring certain points across, or whatever the case may be. But remember to keep that in mind when you're playing the bends. First of all, get the accuracy down, and then secondly, start experimenting with the kind of feel that you use. Are you going to go for it in a really lazy, laid-back way? Is it going to be a bit more aggressive? Is it going to be a quick, kind of frantic sound? Whatever it is, experiment with these things, because the more ways that you have at your disposal to express yourself when it comes to playing guitar, it's just going to give you so much more choices, and you won't end up repeating yourself that often. Okay, so that wraps up the exercises on bending. It's kind of really basic exercise, just working on your tuning of the bend, and we are going to incorporate bending in some of the little licks that we're going to look at in another video, where we will be combining all these articulation techniques up to this point. So there we go, have fun, and remember, get those bends in tune.